The third and final installment of me ranking 2023 albums in a tier list based on the quality of the music we are getting. If you have been keeping up with these videos, you should know already that there's been two, one at kind of each third-ish point of the year. Around April was one, then I did one in August, and now before the end of the year, before we get to all the big year-end lists, I've done one here just to kind of wrap things up. So there's been a lot of albums being ranked in a tier list for you. If you haven't watched those previous two videos, please do check those out, because there may be some albums that you're thinking, why didn't you mention it here? Well, I might have mentioned them before. So yes, as always, I'm going to rank them from what I think is a potential album of the year contender to all the way down to awful, the poopity poop, the poop-diddy scoop albums that were just not good at all, based on obviously my own opinion. That can only whatever this ever can be. It can only ever be just an individual person's opinion at the end of the day. So yeah, please click the link in the descriptions to make your own. Send it me over on Twitter, X, if you want to call it X. I don't think anyone wants to call it X. Instagram, wherever you want to send it me, just share it around, see what you think, see what I think, see what people think, all that kind of stuff. It's all fun. It's all nice to talk about these kinds of things. Share them in Discord servers if you will. And check out my Patreon as well, because you can request more videos like this in the future. And yeah, let's just get on with it. This is the final one of the year. From here on out now, I'm just going to kind of focus on some exciting year-end list material for the channel. Of course, the big lists aren't coming until towards the end of December, but I can do other ones in between now and then that should be interesting, and some new ones popping up this year as well, so I hope you're excited. So yeah, let's get on with this. Just a friendly warning before getting into this. Might be a bit controversial. Some of these takes are definitely going to be unfavourable for sure. I was looking through the albums that had come out since the last video I did on this, and I was like, oh wow, there's a lot of albums that I don't really like here, to be honest with you. And also some really popular albums that I'm not too keen on. So yeah, just a warning. It's not intentional, of course. It just has lined up that way. Let's kick things off with AJR though. No qualms, no controversy with this one. They just have their own separate tier, really, don't they? They probably could have just had their own AJR tier, if we're being totally honest, because they just make a special kind of music that no one else can quite capture. I will say the Click is still funny to me. Like, it's a terrible album, but I do get laughs from it. But every album since then, it's just been uber disappointing, because they're not as funny and they're just really painful to listen to. The music, the lyrics is just really sickly at times. Stevie Goes to London and There's a Hole in the Bottom of My Heart. What a contender for worst song of the year. Love these guys, man. They just keep delivering every single time. Also, who keeps delivering? Anna Frango Electrico. Really super lovely artist here that just makes some really soft and pleasant pop music that's just really catchy and exciting, and yeah, it doesn't really do anything out of the ordinary, but I just really am a fan of what Anna is doing. I think it's really good stuff. Not as good as the previous album, which I think came out in 2019. That was on my year-end list, that one. That was a really good album. But this one's slightly lower than that, but still very good. Here we go with the hot takes on the way already. Friggin' hell, man. Armand Hammer. Look, right, I had to look this up, because I was like, there's no way. And I was like, in my head, I was like, okay, if these guys must have dropped like a dozen albums in the past however many years. And it turns out I was bang on. Like, I looked back since starting my channel, which I started in 2017. Between them, Armand Hammer and Billy Woods, and this is excluding Elucid's work actually, so it's probably even more than that. But I was just looking at Billy Woods separately, because he drops a lot of albums too. And he's dropped 7. Armand Hammer as a collective have dropped 5, and then there's obviously the amount of Elucid albums since then too. So that's 12 in the ones that I was considering. And to me, I just can't believe how much music they drop. And the variation in the sound, it just isn't there. Like, it just isn't there for me. I think the More Mother album that Billy Woods did was really cool, really unique and refreshing. But aside from that, there just isn't enough variation between what they're doing these days. And every release just feels so similar. And I'm just so bored of it. And it's frustrating, because I'm getting people in the comments starting to be like, oh, you just don't like this kind of music now. And it's because of my opinion of like Billy Woods and Armand Hammer, and it's getting me frustrated, because I'm like, no, I do like this kind of music. I'm just finding what these guys are doing so boring now. They just aren't delivering enough variation. I thought Maps was actually pretty good. I also liked Haram, which was the Armand Hammer album. So I do like some of the things they're doing, but there's just too much of the same for me, and I just found this one super dull to listen to. I do like abstract hip hop when it's done very well, just to clear that up, but yeah, not really keen on this Armand Hammer album. I'm glad this one came early on though, so I could address that, just in case people really do think I don't like this style of music. I just think we're giving a lot of passes to Billy Woods and Armand Hammer. Like, any other rapper would drop this much music in the space of 6 years, would be getting absolutely hammered with how much releases they're putting out. Everyone would be saying, take a break, just give it a few years and then drop something else then. But no one seems to do it with Billy. It's a bit strange. Anyway, you'll have already seen that while I was on that tangent, I've dropped Ashnikko in Bad. I did give this a review, so there's not really any surprises here. You should go check that one out. For me, it was worse than the mixtape, which I was surprised about, because I thought the mixtape had some really awful songs on it. But I did at least like the first song on the mixtape. But yeah, this one just had nothing for me. I really couldn't get into it at all. Barry Can't Swim, I did tip him to be like one of the next big things in a previous video that you should go check out. I've done a few of those now where I talk about artists that I think could be huge one day, and I still think that could be true for Barry Can't Swim. I just think actually with what I got here, I was expecting a little bit more. I mean, it's still in the very good tier, obviously. That's you know, obviously not a bad thing at all. But yeah, I was thinking this was going to be one of the albums of the year, and it didn't quite reach that level, unfortunately. But it's still some really good electronic pop type music, some excellent songs on it like Sun Sleeper. Yeah, really good stuff, regardless. I saw a lot of hate for Code Orange, but I like this. I don't know what to say here, to be honest. I thought it was good. I just saw people kind of clowning it and saying it was just awful. I really couldn't hear what people were hearing, but yeah, I liked it, so I'm just going to keep it there. Destiny by DJ Sabrina. I'm not going to lie to you, this is an excellent album and it will be on my year-end list. I haven't had a chance to review it in full, and I haven't had a chance to give it more than like one listen, to be honest with you. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but when you look at the track list that DJ Sabrina puts out there, you will understand why I've only been able to give this one listen. I've done like bits and bobs as well. Like, I've done like the album in sections and listened to like some chunks of the album because I do really like it. So I've done like 10 track stints here and there where I've just kind of let it run and listened to some of the best tracks and things, and it is so good. Like, it's incredible how DJ Sabrina manages to achieve this. Like, the amount of music that is on one album, you would think, oh my god, this is way too much, it gets boring. It just never lets up. Like, it's actually insane how a 4-hour album can just keep you engaged in the ways that it does. But yeah, it's just a tricky one to really talk about in a full review and, you know, do a full lengthy track list talking thing, because there's just so much to say. But I can say I do think it's very good. Strangely gone under the radar this year, but Dorian Electra, guys. Dorian Electra dropped an album, you know. Do you know? Dorian Electra is back with an album. I've seen barely anyone talk about it, but it's really good. It's really good. It's like Dorian pushing the boundaries of the kind of like hyper pop, bubblegum bass pop stuff that they were doing with the past few albums, and kind of taking it to a new level on some of the tracks. Some of the tracks go really, really far, and it's cool. And I just saw nobody talk about it. I thought people loved Dorian, really. But yeah, not for me as good as Flamboyant, but definitely better than My Agenda, for sure. I think My Agenda was a bit messy in places at times. But yeah, really, really good stuff from Dorian. Friendzone. Such a big fan of Friendzone. Love Collection 1 from 2011. One of the best mixtapes I've ever heard. Truly is on that kind of bracket for me. Easily one of the best mixtapes of the 2010s, if we're going beyond that as well, by the way. Yeah, excellent. And then Of course, Friendzone has kind of been a bit more active lately. Well, one half of Friendzone, of course, has been way more active lately on like Twitter and talking more about music. But yeah, there's still music in the Friendzone world that is coming out, and this is collection 3. Very good stuff. Really, really liking what we're getting here. If you've never heard it before, it's kind of like Clams Casino cloud rap instrumentals. Yeah, super, super good stuff. Yeah, I liked the James Blake, the first decent good album of this tier here. I expected to like it more because obviously it was like a way more electronic leaning album from James that I've been hoping for some time. Although I don't think every track quite captivated me as much as the previous one. So I liked what I got. But yeah, considering I've been like hankering for James to do this for a while, you just would have thought I'd have absolutely loved this one, but I didn't quite work out that way. Funny how things work sometimes. I'm going to put, oh, not quite there, Hell Mode in, yeah, very good, from Jeff Rosenstock. Give this a mini short review if you've not already seen it on the channel. It's lurking around there. Just a quick minute review that I did. I was interested in a point that my friend Connor made, actually, where he was like, Jeff is kind of doing the same thing on every album and getting away with it a little bit. And when he said that, I was like, you know what, that's a really good point, because he's kind of just giving us these frantic, herky-jerky, everything's a mess, everything's crap, everything's, and he's been doing that since Worry, you know what I mean? If that even made sense. But I think it actually worked in what I was trying to say there. But yeah, I got a good feel for what Connor was saying when he said that. It's like, yeah, every album's doing a similar thing now. It's like panic, 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 but the music is still so good. So Jeff, you know, getting away with it a little bit here, but you can't really deny what he's doing. I was such a big fan of Joey Valance and Bray's Punk Tactics. It's the most blatant 80s, 90s sounding rap album ever, and so many albums get critiqued from a lot of critics or even people like me for sounding too much like the olden days and not pushing the sound forward, and this literally was just like Beastie Boys 2.0, and somehow they massively achieved what they were setting out to do, because it is just so good. It's so fun, it's so energetic, it's so punchy. I don't think many people are going to take to this because of obviously how clearly obvious their influences are, but there are just sometimes those cases where an artist can do something so well that they end up getting away with it, and I thought that was what happened on this album here. Jorja Smith, again, you know, she dropped an album too, you know, guys. Barely seen anyone talk about this, but Little Things is one of my favourite like pop songs of the year. I think it's a great track. Should be on my year-end list when that comes around. I think that's a great song there. The rest of the album, I think, leaned a little too heavily on some of the ballad type stuff. We were entering like Emily Sandé territory at times, but when she went a bit more on the R&B stuff that she leaned into on the debut album, it was good. It just didn't quite deliver, I don't think, overall. Jungkook, gotta go in there. This guy is like the biggest thing in the world right now. He's kind of running pop music, and anytime he jumps on a feature, it's just skyrocketing and breaking records. It's incredible how much impact he's having, because I don't really know what's going on with BTS, but I just assumed BTS was still going to continue as a collective. I have no idea. I have no sort of dedication to them at all as a band or whatever. But yeah, this guy is massive right now. He is really, really running the game. But it's a shame that the album was just kind of meh. It was just kind of meh. Some of the singles leading up to it were actually decent. I think that track with Jack Harlow, as bad as some of the lyrics are, is super catchy. It's got like such a Justin Timberlake 2006 vibe to it. You know, the lyrics were pretty bad. And same with Seven, actually. That track with Latto, again, pretty bad lyrics, but it is a pretty well-made pop song. But the rest of the album was just like super, super derivative. Just very much one of those things where it's like the hits are going to be the hits, and the rest of the album was just like done in a day, and very little effort went into it. Not literally done in a day before anyone clips that and tells me off. But you get what I'm trying to say. The effort levels were clearly placed onto the singles, and the rest of the album just wasn't there. So much pop music is like that. It is what it is. I have a soft spot for Jungle, and I think this Jungle album was pretty much in the very good tier. Why is it not moving? Come on, man. Not there, not there. You need to be there. Yeah, very good. Back on 74, great track. That actually ended up making it into the charts, which was cool to see, because I was really spinning that a lot when that track came out. And then, yeah, eventually it just kind of made it into the top 40 in the UK, which is really cool. Not sure how or where or why it managed to do that, but I'm all for it. Yeah, they just have like a nice approach to like danceable, groovy, funky pop tunes. They've always had this knack for doing that quite well, and this was just another example of them doing it as well as they've done it since like what, 2015 now. They've been around, maybe longer, 2014 maybe actually. So they haven't really progressed a lot as a band, but they're still putting out good tunes, so I'm okay with it. Yeah, a bit of a sad one here, but Kylie Minogue, Tension. I'm a big fan of Kylie. I said this in the video. I was trying to, like, you know, make people realize that I expect a lot from her, and, you know, I'm not just hating on it for the sake of it. I love her music. I just wasn't keen on this. Really set itself up to be this huge, maximalist, bold, like daring pop album with those singles, especially the title track, which is just one of the most garish and like bold and in your face tracks of the whole year, in a good way, by the way. And yeah, none of the album lived up to that at all. You've got tracks like 10 out of 10, which are terrible. You've got some really cliche formulaic lyrics coming through, which she's always done, I get it. But when the instrumentals are sounding like really cheap and formulaic as well, you just can't help yourself but feel disappointed in what Kylie is doing here, because her abilities are way higher than this album. And I'll be talking about a few other albums on this tier list soon that I think do what she was doing a bit better, and we'll get to those, because that pop dance kind of crossover can be done very well, and she's done it well herself many a time. But on this occasion, I think it was a bit of a miss. Lil Wayne and 2 Chainz came together for a collab album. I'd heard about this Lil Wayne album coming out, and I was pretty interested actually, but then I checked and it was 2 Chainz as well. And yeah, it just ended up being exactly what you thought. It was just really much them two on autopilot. Some of the lyrics are terrible across this album. The mac and cheese thing that 2 Chainz comes out with, easily one of the worst lines I've heard all year. I'm not going into detail with that one. You can check it up yourself and read it. No. They're talking about, you know, women and the money that they've got across the whole thing. It's like really like, wow, just all the cliches in one album. Honestly, I was pretty underwhelmed by it. But who was really expecting any more from 2 Chainz and Lil Wayne? I don't know. Maria Jose Liego, I thought was very good. She's kind of brought out a bit of personality on this album, which I was pretty happy to see actually. Kind of reminds me of like when Rosalia started off with that really slow and vocal heavy powerful album, and then on the second Rosalia album that swag came out and that personality came out, and you were like, okay, she's got something a bit more to her. This is exactly the same. Maria Jose Liego, their debut album, which came out in 2020, is just a beautiful album, so stunning. And then on this one, she's kind of come out and brought a bit more personality to it. Very similar. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next few years she goes further in this direction and has a bit of a rise. Maybe not as big as Rosalia. I don't think she'll be as big as Rosalia, but I certainly think she could get some viral hits doing this style over the next few years. She just needs to fine-tune it, I think. Mitski, I just feel bad at this point for constantly saying I don't really like Mitski. But I just don't get it. She had a super viral moment this year, which was really unexpected. Don't think anyone quite saw it coming, especially with the song that did end up becoming viral, because it isn't a very traditional sounding viral track. But wow, that was huge for her. And yeah, I just still find myself to be underwhelmed by the vocal performances. The lyrics in particular, I don't think she brings a lot to the table compared to some of her contemporaries. Really basic at times, really on the nose at times. I'm just not really into it. And she's an artist that deserves a better fan base, because some of the things I'm seeing, man, are so annoying. Like I saw something on TikTok that was going a bit viral and trendy, where people were like, men can't listen to Fiona Apple, Mitski, Tori Amos, and a bunch of other female artists because they just don't get what they're talking about. Like, why do men think they can listen to this type of stuff? And it's just like, Mitski doesn't want this. She doesn't need this. She's not the type of artist that endorses this ridiculous, cringy gatekeeping. Like, it's just so painful to see. And I just think it's stupid. Like, I'm a massive fan of Fiona Apple. I totally am on board with her music and I appreciate her craft and her artistry. She's one of the best artists of all time, in my opinion. Okay? Why is she getting branched with Mitski? They're not the same at all. You clearly are the one that doesn't get it. If you're saying Mitski and Fiona Apple are the same, you're putting them in the same lane, they're not the same at all. So screw you. I'll listen to Fiona Apple, and I'll also say that I don't think Mitski's all that. Okay? And do better. Mitski deserves better than you. Do better. Okay, a bit of a rogue one here, but Molly Burch dropped a really nice pop album. I'm going to put it a bit higher, actually, than Code Orange. Yeah, you know what, it lands there. Kind of like tennis vibes, just really soft and airy and lush production. Yeah, if you're a fan of tennis, check out Molly Burch. I thought that was a lovely album. New Jeans, going to put this pretty high up, actually, because this is such a good EP. One of the best EPs of the year. Just pop music done so well. These tracks are ridiculously catchy. I was so shocked at how good this was. I wasn't really that aware of who they were, but they started to have a bit of a boost and having quite huge success. Kind of came out of nowhere with some of their tracks becoming hits. Yeah, these are really well produced pop songs. Yeah, so good. I've talked about Olivia Rodrigo already, so you shouldn't be too surprised that she's going to go in the decent tier here. Gave it a 6 out of 10 in my review, so obviously that kind of lines up with a decent, good album to me. Some really fantastic tracks on it, but I was similar to Jorja Smith, actually, underwhelmed with the ballads, because I just thought some of the ballads all sounded the same, really disrupted the flow of the album, and I think the kind of spunkiness, the kind of fieriness that comes through on the pop punk rockier tracks just suits her quite well. I mean, some of her lyrics are very much like teenage written lyrics. I think there's some maturity to develop here with Olivia eventually, which I think will come. But yeah, overall, I liked what she was doing. Like I said, I just think that kind of harder, rockier stuff worked in her favour quite well. And Pretty Isn't Pretty, still one of my songs of the year. I think that's a fantastic song. Really, really brilliant writing on that one. 1-0-Tricks Point Never, bit of a weird one here, because it's like I like 1-0-Tricks Point Never a lot, but then I don't really find myself going back to his music, but I do like what he's doing on this album. I thought it was very, very cool. Okay, a bit of a spoiler for you here, but PinkPantheress is going in excellent. Now, I haven't dropped a review officially for this yet, so you're getting a bit of an inside scoop to what I think, because this review will come. I've recorded it and I've done it all already. It will come in the next few days, but yeah, I'm not going to spoil it or say too much else, but this is one of my favourite albums of the year. I love what PinkPantheress is doing right now. Pitbull, Mr. Worldwide, as if you think I could have excluded this one. And yeah, I'd actually say it's worse than AJR. Some of the, like, you know, alright, okay, so at the moment we're talking a lot about sampling and how it's getting lazy and how artists are just kind of throwing in samples for the sake of it, and it's a very worthwhile conversation to be having at the moment, by the way, because it is getting really bad. Lots of artists at the moment that are doing it and ruining tracks and just doing things for the sake of doing it without really adding anything new to the track. I mean, it's working for them because they're getting viral songs from it, but in terms of longevity, I don't think they're going to have a lasting impact, really. And of course, who in the world would cash in on that and make the most derivative and most awful samples you could imagine? Well, of course, it's Mr. Worldwide himself. It's, of course, Mr. Worldwide himself. Who else would do it? He's, of course, on that train. Yes, he is. And it came through, and it's terrible. But it's funny. It's entertaining, at least. But it's bad. Okay, Roisin Murphy's Hit Parade. How are you going to call it Hit Parade without any hits, Roisin? What are you doing on this album? I don't know. I think I realised that I'm not the biggest fan of DJ Ko's. I didn't love his previous stuff, to be honest. I think he's got some excellent songs. But overall, I think as a house producer, he's a bit stiff. And he's not very adventurous compared to some other house names. For me personally, I think there's some excellent house names in the world right now. He just isn't one of them. And this combination just really was a match made in hell, honestly. Like, Roisin's really stiff delivery. And she adds a bit of quirks here and there, as she would, because it's Roisin Murphy. And by the way, I'm a massive fan of her music generally. But I just thought this match was just really poor. It's not fluid. The tracks don't really have any moments that stand out. It's not catchy. It's just a bit of a stiff listen. And yeah, it would easily be the worst album Roisin's ever made for me. Awful album cover too. Just adding that one in there. And yeah, didn't really get into this one. Okay, Romy though. Really loved this Romy album. I thought this was very, very good. Yeah, again though, see, this is kind of the thing like I was saying about Kylie Minogue, where like, yeah, sure, Romy's lyrics aren't the most inventive at times, but these instrumentals and the producers she's choosing to work with work so well in her favour, and it just makes for a really sweet listen. It's not doing anything adventurous, and I think maybe some people might argue that I'm overrating it here, but even still I think some of the tracks are really, really well put together. And that's what I was saying with the Kylie thing. Like, yeah, I think if she'd picked better producers that had a bit more of a vision, like someone like Fred again, who appears on the Romy album, you know, I think that would have worked much more. And yeah, really like what Romy's doing. Yeah, was pretty surprised by it, actually. Romy and Jamie XX solo, they're kind of killing it. Disbanding the XX was a very good decision, I've got to say. Reve, I did tip her to be one of the next big things, and she delivered on her debut album. In fact, I'm going to put it pretty high up, actually. Yeah, this was really fun dance pop music that, yeah, I'm all for. I'm all for what she was doing on this album. Some of the tracks are a little silly with the lyrics, but yeah, I think it's very entertaining. She's got a lot of charisma. Stage presence is there. The beats were there. Again, kind of bringing together dance pop elements that just are more exciting and more adventurous to listen to. Okay, last leg of this now. Got about 11 albums left. You'll be happy to see Yves Tumor, because there's been a few times where people are saying, why have you not included Yves Tumor? Well, my Yves Tumor is here. Okay, now we got Sampha. Really couldn't find the words to say how I feel on this Sampha album. Really found it tricky. Probably goes there, actually. But I do like it, just for the record. I do like it. I do think it's very good. I just think there was something missing. There was a spark there that wasn't igniting. And a lot of people were putting it on the level of Process, or some people were even putting it higher than Process. I think give this a bit of time and you'll maybe see that it's just not on that level, to be honest with you. It just didn't quite have those melodies that really stand out and strike you in the way that Sampha is so good at. There were some tracks that really felt a little undercooked, but overall it's still in the very good tier and is still amongst some really good albums, and is better than a lot of this tier list, because Sampha is a vocalist and Sampha's production is super strong for the most part. And there's tracks like Suspended, Only, absolutely love Only. And yeah, obviously the singles that came out before it as well, which were good too. So yeah, just didn't quite have that wow factor. It just was missing something, and I couldn't place what it was that was missing from this album. But yeah, I think give this one time. I think some people might start to reel back some of their overhype for this one, because I think they'll see that what he was doing on Process was special, and I don't think he's captured that again. He couldn't quite reach that level. Anyway, Slauson Malone, I thought this was pretty cool. Liked how there was a bit more vocal presence on this one compared to previous stuff. Don't have a huge amount to say on it though, but yeah, you know, you can guarantee that I do rate it and think it's good. Slater just puts together a lot of fun, silly, messy pop tunes that are very much like 2000s inspired. I liked it when she did it in 2019, I think it were. I still like it with this new one. Pretty basic at times, actually, but for the most part, these are banging tunes, so I can't really deny it. Sofia, Kourtesis, one of the best albums of the year. In fact, I'm putting it the highest of the excellence, easily. Love this album. Was really, really close to getting a 9 from me. I think over time I might even end up landing on that because of how much I love this. Just again, when you're looking at pure, beautifully made, soulful house music. In comparison to some of these ones that are in the lower tiers, you can see where the vision is just expanded with artists like Sofia, because she just has a wonderful approach to it and the production is sublime. So when I was talking about DJ Goes before, I think if you check this album out, you might see what I'm talking about here, because the difference in the fluidity, oh, it's so clear. Spanish love songs, haven't really thought about this one too much. I'm going to drop it to decent good, because I did originally have it in very good, but when I think back to when this album came out and how much I've gone back to it, it's very minimal. Like, I don't think the lyrics are quite as on point as what they were on The Brave Faces Everyone, which is just an excellent album, one of the best albums of the decade so far for sure. Love that thing. Don't think this one quite has that level of power to it. And then our first album of the year contender of the entire tier list, and the only one that's going to be on there, is Sufjan Stevens. Thankfully, for every video I've done of this, I've got at least one or two that have made it into that tier. So yeah, you can now probably piece together what you might predict as my album of the year by the end of the year with the 3 videos that have come out here, because there's at least one in every one. What can I say about Sufjan? I absolutely gushed over the album in the review. I love how he hasn't really changed things up too much, but it feels different because of how he's presenting the lyrics and how he sings his words, and how the instrumentals just feel so vibrant and lush, and it's just stunning. Like, he is one of the best singer-songwriters of all time for sure now. I think now he's in that conversation because of how good his past few albums have been, and he's got to be in that conversation for sure now. Anyway, TK Made's a little bit like Barry Can't Swim, where I think I expected a little bit more from it. I'll put it a bit higher up actually. I thought it was cool, thought it was good, some really fun, energetic bangers on it, but for the most part I think didn't quite capture what she was doing on the EP. Underscores kind of negated the reason for 100 Gex, I think now, which might be a controversial thing to say, but I do think what Underscores is doing is similar to that kind of goofy hyperpop stuff, but it feels a bit more tasteful and it feels more enjoyable on the ears, not quite as grating. I thought it was pretty cool. Okay, let's speed through the last couple now, last 3 in fact. Westside Gunn joining Ashnikko in the bad tier. Really don't like what Westside Gunn is doing at the moment. I think it gets really grating after a certain amount of time. I think the boom 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 after like 3 tracks just does me in. And then when you look at the length of this album and you look at how little variation there is and how weak a lot of the features are and how poor some of the production is as well, by the way. Oh my goodness, this was a lot to take in. Couldn't get with it at all. I really like what Yeule is doing right now. I think this is super creative and super awe-inspiring. Some of Yeule's previous stuff didn't quite click with me, but this one very much did. I thought this was a really, really good release. Really, really abstract and strange, but super captivating from start to end. I was very much on board with it. And finally, you get to see what I think of Yves Tumor. Now, Yves Tumor has one of my albums of the decade so far, it's worth saying. Absolutely love Heaven to a Tortured Mind, an album that grew on me since I reviewed it. I gave it a 7 initially, but now I'd say it's like a 9. That's how much it grew on me. Love that album. And this one took absolutely ages to click with me. I went back to it so many times, and I've got to say it's still not quite there, but I'm going to go decent good. I think, ooh, that's a bit too high. I think it's cool. I think the more heavier tracks are worthwhile. I think it's a bit more of an experimental release, but it feels like every time Yves Tumor puts something out, it's completely different to the previous thing. So yeah, maybe just one of those that will take time to kind of adjust to. Maybe needs to keep, getting those re-listens in to adjust to this slightly new sound compared to the previous couple of albums. It's super impressive how varied they are and diverse they are. It just didn't click with me as much as, Safe in the Hands of Love or Heaven to a Tortured Mind, but I still think it was cool. So there you go. Let's call it there now. This is the tier list that I have ended up with Thank you for watching this video. If you would like to make your own, please do, and then send it over to me and share it on social medias, as I've already said. Tell me your thoughts on mine, if you think this is terrible, if you think I've made a huge mistake with any of them, and any opinions that you want to share with anything I've said throughout the video, would love to see. So as I say, this is the last one of the year. From here on out now, I'm going to focus on like miscellaneous year-end lists and extra tidbits that I tend to do, just to give you a brief summary of what I tend to do every year. I do a best hit songs of the year video, so the best popular songs of the year. I do the gems that you discovered, which I've posted about on my social medias already, and then the gems that I discovered, and then the Spotify Wrapped that people send over to me as well. All those and more that come between now and the end of the year. So that's going to be the main focus, as well as reviews and other things that pop up along the way, of course, between now and the end of the year. So yeah, hopefully you get something out of those. Hopefully you're excited for all of it to come now. And yeah, have a good day, subscribe, check out my Patreon, and goodbye.